Hey there, Contractor Cav here with Overseas Contractor Academy, and this week, based on last week, I thought hey man, it might be a good idea to cover my own initial mistakes that I made when I first became an overseas contractor. I've been doing it a very long time. I've got ballpark 12 years into it. So it's easy for people to look and go like, oh, he just always got it right. And no, I made plenty of mistakes along the way. Also this week, I'm going to try very hard to keep it a little shorter. The videos have been just running way too long in my opinion. So let's roll the bumper and get to it. Okay, so the very first thing that I did wrong, my very first big mistake, was that I did not attempt to negotiate salary at all. I didn't know how to do that. I had very little experience in that kind of thing, so they told me what the pay was and I just accepted that. You know, that was the gospel truth. In fact, to tell the truth, I didn't realize I was supposed to negotiate until my second overseas contract, which I also did not negotiate. I became super close with my boss on the second contract, which was in Qatar, and after we'd been hanging out like 6 months and got really close, she was just one of the coolest bosses I ever had. So Red, if you ever look at this, like, total respect, still love you. So we're at brunch and she's just like, you know, I gotta ask you something, Kev. Why did you agree to the initial salary without even counter-offering? You know, you've got a good attitude, you work hard, you know, we get along well. I'm just kind of surprised that you didn't value yourself higher. And just light bulb, you know, one of those moments where, oh, I'm supposed to be making counter-offers here, and I just didn't even think of it. So that was my very first mistake, both on my first and second contracts, is I didn't even think to try to negotiate salary. And you know, I had to research even how to do that, what was the right way to do that, once I even had the idea. So, and after that, of course, it paid good dividends. But yeah, first big mistake, no negotiation of salary. My second biggest mistake, my second mistake that I made was that all I saw were dollar signs. And you know, when somebody first hits you with that overseas contract money and you're not used to seeing those kinds of numbers, and you know, back then there was no overseas contractor course, so I didn't even know like what to expect. I was just as green as could be, right? So all I saw was like the dollar amount, and I'm just like, okay, I'll sign. And I didn't even know like what questions to ask, stuff to clarify, any of that stuff. I was just Mr. like, I'll go with it, whatever it is, you know? And that's great attitude wise, like maybe, you know, they like seeing that in some ways, but quite honestly, it also led to some difficulty because I didn't ask questions and didn't get any specifics before going over there. And so my very first gig, I ended up in Mosul, up in northern Iraq. And the problem was that before Saddam fell and we kind of went in and took over, Mosul was split into thirds. And so you had the Kurdish, you had the Sunni, and the Shia. Well, as soon as the central authority was gone, the three sides really started fighting for control of the city. And as them three sides fought for control, at the time the big enemy was AQI, which was Al-Qaeda Iraq. They were able to just come in and do whatever they wanted in that city and on the outskirts of that city and all the surrounding areas, which mostly meant attacking us at will. And we could not get the local militias or police to just stop fighting each other and fight the real bad guys out there, because of course there was a vacuum there of power and everyone wanted to fight for control. So what that meant to me as a contractor, because I didn't ask any of that, like where am I actually going to go for my final base, and what's it going to be like there, and you know, what is IDF and all these kinds of things. I just didn't know, man. Like I said, there was no overseas contractor course. There wasn't information out there. So I just like showed up thinking, well, I'll just wing it, you know? Which is a freaking terrible idea. So I go there and it is hot. Like, it is incoming fire multiple times a day with the rockets and the mortars and just all the people trying to sneak in under the wire and stuff, and it was just crazy, man. Like, it was a crazy place. And so yeah, that was kind of like my second mistake. Was I didn't realize that, Mosul was like this total crazy place. Like this, it was at the time, aside from Ramadi, which I don't think Ramadi ever got good, but aside from Ramadi, Mosul was like the armpit of Iraq. Like Ramadi might have been the butthole, but we were the armpit up in Mosul, and it sucked, believe me. So that was, again, my second mistake of just not knowing questions to ask, and then ending up in a place where, I'm Air Force, man. I'm not used to friggin' incoming rockets and mortars and, incoming direct fire and just snipers. Because you're real close to the city, you had some sniper shots being taken. It was crazy, man, and I wasn't used to that. So I just didn't know to ask about that. I didn't know, even what my response to any of that would be. So, like I said, I saw the dollar signs and was just like, yep, I'll do it. Like whatever it is, man, I'll do it. So I didn't know what questions to ask, and so that was a very big mistake, is just not having any information and not knowing what to ask or what I was even getting into, because I was blinded by the dollars, man. That's just as plain as I can be about that. Okay, and so the last big mistake that I made was that I allowed myself to be drawn into conflicts with people. So to kind of tell a bit of the backstory, when I came in, the lead guy for our program was not there. He had gone home for 3 weeks on his R&R trip. And so his second guy in charge trained us and then dispersed us out to the field. And so they sent one guy south, one guy just like an hour north of Baghdad, and me way up north into Mosul. So I was there for 2.5 weeks down in Baghdad. And I got the sense like the guy running the program is a bit caustic, like he doesn't get along with people, he doesn't treat people well, but he's been there now for a couple of years and he really knows everything there is to know about the program and about what we're doing, but dealing with him is difficult. And so I was just like, well, whatever, I'm just gonna avoid this guy, So I went up to Mosul and I'm trying to do the job as best I can under those circumstances. And like I said, I was so green, I didn't understand so many facets of what the hell was going on. But I was trying to adjust, I was trying to learn, I was trying to wing it and just do my best and figure it all out. And it was a little overwhelming, quite honestly, but I did the best I could. Well, homeboy comes back and sure enough, man, starts hitting me up with the emails and the calls, and he is just a friggin' jerk. And so one of the problems was that he could never keep an admin assistant. It was supposed to be him down there sort of collecting all the data countrywide and then organizing it and then feeding that up to the military decision makers. Well, colonels and generals and whatnot. So he needed an admin assistant, but because he was such an asshole, like everyone would quit. And so they would come in, they, put up with his attitude and his poor treatment for a month or two, maybe 3, and and just eventually be like, I quit, and it's because of this guy. So he'd lost like 4 in a row, 3, and then I went down there. So he basically said, you got to come down and help me out for a couple weeks until another admin gets sent out. And I went down there, and dude, that did not go well. Like, I really struggled on a daily basis, because you're just sitting there 12 hours a day with this asshat treating you like garbage. So the sort of the fourth mistake that I made was I quit, and I went to the military program leader and quit, because I just didn't realize that there's a separation there between company and military. And so a side mistake I made was involving the military when I did quit. And so I went to the head of the program and said, look, I like you, I like all the military guys here, I like the people at my level, but this guy, I can't put up with him any longer. And so the colonel in charge said to me, like, well, you've got a good attitude, you're smart, like, we really like you around here. We know that you're basically the fourth person to quit because of him. What can we do to keep you? And I was like, send me back to Mosul, like, get me away from this dude. So the military guy running the program stepped in and said, command decision, Kev goes back up north. Well, as you might imagine, now I've just gone from like a small little daily conflict to where this guy loathes me and just can't wait to get rid of me. And so I went back up to Mosul, and I probably lasted another 3 months before, you know, basically that colonel went out and another colonel came in, because the troops were always rotating in and out. And as soon as the new guy came in, that prick down in Baghdad was like, oh, I need Kev to come down here and like help me with this and that, and you know, and of course the new guy was like, yeah, whatever, that's your program, do what you want. So as soon as I got word like, oh, you're supposed to return and you'll be staying in Baghdad, and I'm like, no, I won't. So I ended up having to leave that job early before the contract was out, just because I had made that enemy, and at that point, like, really ingrained the fact that like I disliked him and I would do anything to stay away from him. So as I've covered before, just try not to take sides when you're over there. Try to do the best you can to get along with people, be around the people you like. Try to distance yourself as much as you can. Like, you don't want to make enemies, because I had lost sight of the goal at that point, and the goal is get there, make money, pile it up, invest, get out of debt, change your life, right? And I had lost track of that, because I totally lost sight of all that, because I was so like embroiled in this conflict. And it was just stupid. It was so stupid. So that was my other big mistake, was having conflicts with people. And it just doesn't serve anyone really to do that. So if you go over, like, learn from that mistake, like whatever you can do to avoid conflicts, do it, all right? So, okay, that's gonna wrap it up for this week. Hopefully we can get this back down to a normal time limit, and you know, learn from my mistakes. That's basically all I can say. That's the way to, you know, pay it forward in life, is like, hey, I learned this hard lesson, you know, you guys can learn from it. You don't have to make the mistake yourself. So, all right, so that's gonna be it for this week. Roll up your sleeves, get the knowledge, get the information, get the tools, and then get overseas and start making some of that overseas contractor money and change your life. All right, we'll see you next week.